and this is Fox 10 Talks. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ron Hoon, and thank you for starting your morning with us. Hope you can hear me okay.
I'm not hearing it either.
I'm still hearing Sherry in my headphones. That's crazy. But good morning and welcome aboard. If you look at this picture, it's remarkable. This was just going into the weekend, and it was a doorbell cam that caught a tornado that was right on the edge of this little city in North Dakota. We're bringing in, this is a special treat for us. Here she is, everybody. Crystal
Hello.
joins. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, so this hit, let me just give everybody a few of the details on what we've learned about it so far. So it was caught on a doorbell cam, and it shows this turned out to be an EF3 tornado.
Scary.
As it struck this little town of Enderlin, North Dakota on Friday night. And it was deadly. We learned by the end of the weekend that 3 people died as a result. But this was the first EF3 or higher in this part of the Dakotas in 15 years. So a few questions for you. We think of places more like Kansas and Oklahoma, a little further to the south as Tornado Alley. But is it unusual to get it all the way up, these tornadoes all the way up that far north?
No, not necessarily. I mean, really anywhere in the U.S. can get tornadoes, of course. But obviously you see this and it is a shock. Just the swath, the size of this thing is massive. And this was actually part of something that is a little more common in that general area, which is known as a derecho.
Oh, yeah. What is a derecho?
So it's a line of severe thunderstorms, a massive line of severe thunderstorms. I mean, a huge one that travels for at least 250 miles, which yeah. So the whole state of North Dakota was impacted by this thing, and it spawns tornadoes up along the line as it moves through. But it is well known that when a derecho moves through, there is typically major power outages. There's usually deaths, unfortunately. And these usually come with multiple reports of wind gusts of over 75 miles per hour, which obviously was the case with this one. So when these happen, you end up with a lot of headlines for all the storm damage that comes with it. And that is something that definitely does happen up in that part, the Dakotas, northern parts of the Midwest. And they were on what's known as the Ring of Fire, kind of the outside edge of that high pressure dome, that heat dome that's been cooking everybody on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So they're on the cusp of the hottest air. And when you get 2 air masses combining like that, that's when, bam, you get nasty weather.
Yeah, that was just so ominous to see it like that. I mean, I can't really estimate how wide it is.
Oh, it's
but
gigantic.
To me, it looks like it could be several hundred feet across. Really something.
Well, and nocturnal tornadoes are the worst nightmare because people react more quickly and more thoughtfully during daytime tornadic activity.
Okay.
They hear their phones, they see it out their window, but at night, maybe they sleep through it, and maybe they just don't see it, so they don't believe it. So these are usually more deadly, nocturnal tornadoes.
By the way, you mentioned the heat on the east. You brought your maps with you today, and so let's just talk about it because it's kind of, we've had several days over this month of June where we've been below normal, but they're seeing some of the most intense temps maybe ever on the eastern half of the country.
So this happens, where they get these heat domes. Someone asked me earlier, like, oh man, I heard the headlines about a heat dome. What is that? So we get high pressure all the time, right? I mean, our temperatures get above triple digits all the time. But this heat dome that they're dealing with right now over the East Coast, it's persistent. So day after day, they're building on heat, which a lot of times they'll pop them a little faster than this one. And that is the reason that they're looking at temperatures that are just so hot and why we've got all these storm alerts in place. So actually, I'll go to my next graphic here and you can see the areas in pink along the East Coast, up the mid-Atlantic, are all under extreme heat warnings, which if you remember, we were under just a week ago. And then heat advisory stretching for really almost the entire eastern half of the country because of temperatures so hot for them especially. So if we look at the actual numbers, let's see if I can get those up. There you go. These are the forecast or actual current temperatures right now, the feels like temperatures. So what it feels like our body perceives based off of the humidity and the air temp, which some people are like, oh, you use the heat index just as a scare tactic. But actually, this is how your body reacts. So this is how people and animals are impacted, is what it feels like to the body. 103 in DC right now, 104 in Charlotte, 102 in Boston. So it's not the air temp, but it's the feels like temperature. And I used to live in Philly.
Yep.
When it is humid and it's just like 90 degrees,
Yep.
it is awful.
I went to
that's
Boston one summer weekend, and it was 92, and it's so humid because you're right on the water there. And I just thought, I will take 108 or 10 or whatever in the desert over this anytime. And the fact that they may actually hit 100 of air temperature in
almost
Boston
never
blows
happens.
my mind. And New York could be the same.
Yeah. So I remember, again, living in Philly, that if we ever were to forecast like a 100, that was a big deal because it doesn't happen that often out there. And I think for perspective, too, we hear that and we're like, it was 117 last week here. But they don't have the same, obviously, like your grocery stores have AC, but there's a lot of homes that don't have AC in the efficiency that we do.
Right.
So they don't have that relief. Schools would shut down because of it. Literally, they would have to close schools if it was too hot. So it's a big deal for them out that way. I think I just saw a post yesterday that one of the one of the colleges in New Jersey, a bunch of people ended up having heat-related illness. They had to stop the graduation of a college because of heat issues. Yeah, right. So it's serious out there.
Yeah. Okay, how long will they be baking, and how do we look for the next, for the rest of this month?
Yeah, so for them, if you take a look, the feels like temperature through this afternoon is in that 105 range for, say, like DC to New York. And then again tomorrow, same thing, still feeling like that. Even Thursday, before the numbers should start to tailor down. For us, unfortunately, I don't know if I want to be the bearer of bad news, but if we do a little comparison here, I've got a nice graphic actually that I'll pull up. We have been on a bit of a roller coaster. Last week we hit that 117 last Thursday. Today we're on the downside technically. There's a little area of low pressure that's helping us out. So the average today is 106, but our forecast is 104. But this is coming up this weekend. We're back to it. 110 or hotter, especially by the time we get to Sunday.
Now, could Syleste and I, could we vote on which of those three options we like the best?
Yeah, sure. You can vote. I can change that, but we can vote.
Wow. Okay, so seriously, I mean, especially because we're all scarred from last summer, any day that we're at or below,
I know,
is
celebration.
Is a huge plus.
Well, the hope is that this year, I'm hopeful that maybe we will have a little more monsoonal influence than last year, and that will cap these like unregulated ranges of 110 to 120 that we were at last year. So keep your fingers crossed that we get in a little monsoonal moisture by the first week of July.
Okay.
So
I don't know about you, Celeste, but monsoon is here.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to many visits with Crystal.
Yes. With lots of rain.
Yes, I will work on that.
Okay, good. Crystal, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, we're going to go to our next piece of tape here because it is. Okay, I'm sorry. I know the guy's suspension probably got ruined here, but this is a town in Missouri where the heat caused the road to buckle. And they said, Celeste, that it happened almost instantaneously. You know, like there wasn't well, now hold on.
That's crazy.
You can't say it's instantaneous. There's already a road. There's a
it's
road sign up there.
Yeah, and some cones set up.
Yeah. Well, so I think I believe these are concrete slabs.
This is
as
called
opposed to just
Mother
asphalt.
Nature's speed bump.
She's
no
like, kidding.
The city isn't doing enough to slow traffic down in this area, so I'm going to take it upon myself to do such a thing.
Yeah. Well, so it's Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Some of these cars, my gosh. I mean, at least this next guy saw what happened to the guy before him, and he's like, I'm slowing down. I'll just, like Celeste says, it's Mother Nature's speed bump.
We're just going to wait and see.
Anyway. All right. So somehow or another, we manage the heat better than they do in any other part because it's so common here.
Well, and I think, as I was sitting in and listening to a part of, when Crystal was here and you in the chat, Here's the thing. How many times are we in the middle of a summer and they have this heat wave through the Pacific Northwest and people actually die from the heat?
Yep.
Or they're in London or Italy somewhere and people die from the heat. And it's because of the humidity. And we don't hear about that very often here in Phoenix because
Right. Yeah.
we have air conditioners or swamp coolers or
Yep.
lots of indoor malls,
Yeah, thank
maybe
goodness
things
for
like
that,
that, movie
right?
theaters
Yeah.
if you can.
Although when they built the first couple of outdoor malls, I remember thinking, "Oh, that'll never fly," but they're super
They
popular. Like
are very
Santan Mall
Yeah,
out there
that's a
in
nice one,
Gilbert.
Ron. It's
Yeah.
very posh, bougie.
It's very sort of bougie.
Well, the great thing about those, I think, is that you just can park right up on the store and
Yeah.
you walk right in.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right?
mean? You don't
Sure.
have to park in some garage and then walk
Right.
halfway across the place.
Well, Biltmore's like that. Carolyn Commons is like that.
Yeah,
So, I
Desert
mean, I think they've
Ridge.
hit and not only does it work in the hot weather, it works in the cold weather. Not that we're ever going to see anything quite like this, but did you see this video come in from just yesterday? For only the third time in 100 years, they got snow in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
That was Don't Cry For Me,
Thank you,
Argentina.
Celeste. You have a lovely singing voice. I don't know if anybody's ever complimented you on it before.
Never in a zillion years.
Usually when Celeste starts singing to me in the studio, I say something like, "What song is that?"
Yeah. What? You're not the original singer. Zip it up,
Yeah.
sister.
All right. So before we take our first break, I just thought this was interesting too. Now, look, we all know it's hot here in the summer and you have to adjust. Same for our neighbors in Tucson and Las Vegas.
Yes.
But they had a groundbreaking yesterday in Las Vegas, and instead of doing it out in the dirt,
Uh-huh.
they did it in some guy's office in
Oh.
cool air conditioning. Ready? Come on, seriously, watch this now. Look.
Oh, come on.
Go ahead, do your thing here, guys.
Oh, come on.
Oh, and then the confetti goes all the way 8 feet up in the air and hits the ceiling and comes down.
Why can't they just tough it out for 10 minutes?
I know it. Okay, so the A's broke ground yesterday on their new ballpark. It's going to be beautiful. By the way, I don't know in this video if we have the actual schematics, but it's pretty awesome, that ballpark they're going to be creating up there. But they left Oakland. They never could get a new ballpark put together, and it was just falling apart. And so they've moved to Las Vegas, and by 2028, I believe, in 3 more years, they'll be playing in their beautiful
It's pretty
new
cool that
facility.
you have cities like, of course, Vegas, Salt Lake.
Yeah, they're
that
in the
are- that-
running
That,
for an MLB.
well, and they ponied up and they wanted the Coyotes.
Yeah.
So there's some cities that want these big time teams.
Don't remind me of that, Celeste. Anyway, all right, so let's take a break. We'll go to the mystery cam. Ooh, I like
Oh,
this.
where is this?
This might be international. I don't know. Give us your guess. Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a mystery cam that is really creating some conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have a guess.
Okay.
But Celeste, what are you seeing on the chat box?
Argentina from Cherie Wolf.
Nice.
We've got a California from Sherry Nevada Pub.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia from Ethan D.
Okay.
Somali, Africa from Derek Palaya.
Wow.
I wonder if Derek's new. Palaya, Derek?
Derek.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Let us know where you're watching from, buddy.
Hey, Derek. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the friendliest chat you'll ever find.
And then we have El Paso from Kim Winnett.
I believe Kim is correct. I'm going El Paso.
You're going to go Texas.
Well, Texas. I'm looking for the Sun Bowl, which is kind of the main thing El Paso is known for. And so,
okay, the area far to the right, you think that's Mexico or like a part of the wall or something, or is this?
I'm looking for the wall. I don't know. I just know that El Paso has mountains like that.
Yes, they do.
And so at first when I saw it, I thought Monterrey, Mexico. Because we're getting more cameras from around the world every day. You go back and talk to Dean Fazzini. He's like a professor of geography.
Wow.
Because he has so many cameras he has to keep track of.
Is he going to be working on his PhD?
Correct, Dr. Rodriguez.
I'm going to go Nevada.
All right. So we have a Nevada, we have a Texas, and we have all your guesses, too.
We also have a New Mexico from Michael Lewis.
Oh.
But it is El Paso,
it is
Texas.
El Paso.
Nice work.
You know what's funny about that, Michael Lewis, with that guess is you only have to go a little ways from El Paso, I think just over those mountains, and you're in Las Cruces.
You are.
New Mexico, which I have not been there yet, but I've seen pictures. I want to go see it. NMSU, New Mexico State.
Yes, it's very beautiful. I've only
you've been to Las Cruces?
Yeah, I've driven through.
Okay.
But that was it. My aunt used to live in El Paso, Texas.
Really?
Yeah, so I'd go visit her sometimes.
Well, that's the thing about this streaming show. We find out new information about Celeste every single day.
And Ronald Hoon.
Think about this. Already we've established that she has a lovely singing voice. And she used to go see her aunt in El Paso.
Yes.
Did she specialize in making some kind of homemade food when you'd come over for a visit? I bet.
Well, she was actually in the FBI.
So you don't need to make your own food? What are you saying?
No, she's pretty busy like catching bad guys.
Yeah.
So she didn't cook very often, but we did frequent the great Mexican restaurants of El Paso.
Oh, I bet they are some good ones.
There's some good ones.
Okay, let's just move on. Thank you for joining us, especially for our first-time viewers. Did we find out where we have all of our regulars on today, which is great. Husky Mom and Kim Winnett.
Brandy
and
the Bookworm.
David, Brandy the Bookworm. I like Brandy's guess, by the way, of Egypt somewhere in Egypt. I thought that was a pretty good guess, too.
Real quick, Ron. Derek Palaya says Twin Cities, Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Is where I am from.
Yeah.
I watch you guys, your news on Fox Local app on my smart TV.
That is so cool.
Isn't that great?
Celeste,
Derek, thank you for joining.
And for Derek and for you, I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
Okay.
Remember last year where I went on my vacation?
North Dakota.
Thank you.
Yes.
How do you pronounce it again?
North Dakota.
North Dakota. And I loved it so much that each year for one of my vacay weeks, I'm going to go explore a state.
And this year?
Minnesota.
Yes.
So with Derek there in the...
maybe you guys hook up and have some coffee.
Well, I was going to say either
soda,
that or maybe he knows of a streaming studio in the Twin Cities and I could join you via the Starlink satellites.
That is a great idea. That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about all that, but I've been lining up all the cool places that I want to go see in Minnesota.
Like the Mall of America?
Sure. They have 10,000 lakes. I don't think I can get to all of them.
Oh, wow. Well,
hopefully a few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to go see where Prince's house is.
Oh, yeah.
Paisley Park.
That would be so great.
And my grandma grew up in a little town called Redwood Falls, Minnesota. I've always wanted to go check that out. So.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. We have a frustrated president today because he gets this ceasefire deal put in place. And to me, it sounds like he was more angry with Israel than with Iran. Our editor, Jeff Haggerty, and I, every morning about 7 a.m., we sit down and we kind of brainstorm, Celeste, because we're able to, on the TV side, bring you some of the big, important, like quick clips in the news. But I say, Jeff, if you can, for our streaming show audience, maybe give us a little more context, because we have a whole hour here.
Right.
With limited commercial interruption.
That is the best part.
Anyway, here's what he came up with. Here's what the president was saying today on the South Lawn of the White House. He's landed in Europe already, by the way, but this was earlier this morning.
I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit, and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. But we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now. I think they both violated it. I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay? Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there, absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Well, he's on fire, Celeste.
Yeah, pretty angry.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because one of the leaders in Iran actually came out with a statement that said Iran will not violate the ceasefire unless the Zionist regime does. They still can't just say Israel. Tehran is ready for talks and to defend the rights of the Iranian people at the negotiating table. So it's all laying out. By the way, we're going to be talking about some of those posts that he came up with. But Celeste, let's go to our poll question this morning because the numbers are moving around. Ready? Go ahead.
So we have your poll question. Frustrated President Trump tries to get Iran-Israel ceasefire to hold. So here are your thoughts. Of course, you can share your comments, and Big D will have those a little bit later as well. But here are your options. So I believe in Trump. He'll figure out a new way to make it work. 64% of you say that. It'll never work. The two countries hate each other too much. 28% of you say that. And then finally, we get some numbers here on this last option. Doesn't matter, even with a ceasefire, Iran won't give up nukes.
Now, here's the YouTube poll question. Holy cow, Celeste.
Wow.
People are fired up. I know you had a lot of votes yesterday as well, but
we did.
Here we are, already over 800 votes. 41%, I believe in Trump. He'll figure it out. 31% say it'll never work. Much more, a greater number of people here, almost 30%, say, frankly, it doesn't matter because even with a ceasefire, Iran will never give up wanting to have a nuke. So that's YouTube. You can vote there, or you can vote, just grab the QR code and vote. All right. So a story that we had breaking for you this morning when we first went on the air, violence at a family party in one part of the valley. Our Danielle Miller was on it since early this morning. Danielle, what can you tell us about this hit in a kind of a quiet neighborhood? It was actually this morning, correct?
Yeah, it was in a neighborhood in South Phoenix. It happened just before about 2:30 this morning. According to the department, it was a family. Some sort of altercation happened, and after that altercation, somebody at that point pulled out a gun. Unfortunately, shot two people. It was an adult man and an adult woman. Injuries. The man had critical injuries, was transported to the hospital, but he did later die from those injuries. And as far as who did this, a suspect, according to the Phoenix Police Department, that person left the gun there at the scene at the house and then took off on foot. And at this point, the Phoenix Police Department is still looking for that person.
So This seems like an unusual time of night to have a family get together.
Absolutely.
A family party. 2 in the morning, right, Danielle?
It was, yeah, it was just before 2:30 in the morning. So I'm sure, I mean, just, guessing here, they probably had been at the house, a get together several hours before, and this kind of was just the tail of what was happening there.
It probably was the end of the night. They're partying, getting together, maybe liquor involved, and that 2:30, some stuff just got out of hand.
One last question for you here, Danielle, just so I'm clear on this. It was one guy who grabbed a gun and opened fire on the other people that were in the party. It wasn't like a rolling gunfight between two armed men, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point. From what it sounds like is there was some sort of altercation. I don't know if that was verbal or physical, but at some point, the suspect in this case pulled out a gun, and that's the person that started shooting, hitting that man who died. And then the woman was, according to the police, she didn't even know that she was hurt. She had blood on her from the man, and come to find out, she was actually shot in the arm. So she has non-life-threatening injuries. She's still at the hospital, but it does seem that it was, some sort of fight, possibly verbal, possibly physical, and that's when that gun got pulled out. So it doesn't seem as if it was a gun battle or anything. It seems like then got just really over the edge, pulled out the gun, and decided to shoot.
Jeez.
Okay. Danielle, thank you. Heartbreaking to hear when the gunfire breaks out already. We have one dead. And if there are any other updates, we'll pass them along.
Yeah,
Danielle,
just the one
go ahead. Yeah.
Injuries.
Right. Okay. Okay, Danielle, doing a great job on that story. Before we hit this next break, Celeste.
Yes, Ron.
The story of the mystery of the bombs outside of Tucson.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a bigger story here in the coming days because 3 bombs were found in the little town of Sahuarita, south of Tucson. You got the FBI and the ATF. One, let me just roll this video. Here's kind of what they were saying, and you'll see the scene as well. Ready? Here we go.
Now, definitely looking a little bit harder, just taking precautions to keep everyone safe.
You can't, I don't know. I want to know my parks are safe. I want to know all the families can begin enjoying this place again, and I know they're working hard.
One of the bombs was found at a park with a playground, and then 2 others as well. So right now, I don't know, maybe they don't have as many cameras as you would like to see in city parks, etc., but they got to get this thing solved. It's a beautiful park.
It really is. What a nice neighborhood that is.
And you can imagine these families are really worried. All right, we're back for a quick break after this on Fox 10 Talks. And you're looking live. Oh, no, you're not looking live at. Now you're looking live at Branson. Celeste, do you know that every once in a while I accidentally do that to get a little extra on-camera time?
Do you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, everybody, it's Branson. Oh, there it is. So anyway, a couple more headlines. By the way, coming up in just a couple of minutes, the one and only from Live Now, Mike Page will be joining us. But these headlines are interesting. A federal law requiring truck drivers to be proficient in English and be able to prove that they can read road signs that are in English is now being enforced by the Trump administration. So if you're a trucker and you're pulled over, where's that video, by the way?
I mean, you should be able to read the signs. How do you get a commercial driver's license?
Yeah. I don't know what the testing process is like there. But maybe, NAFTA, we're kind of in the post-NAFTA world right now, but maybe you have like a French-speaking truck driver that came in from Canada or a Spanish speaker.
That's true.
Who came up from the South. And so they just want to make sure that everybody who's out there on the roads can communicate in English and can read the signs.
Okay.
So that just now has gone into effect. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the Supreme Court, there was so much going on yesterday with Iran, Israel, that the Supreme Court actually gave the administration a huge win on these deportations. They agreed that some people who managed to get into the country illegally cannot challenge the deportation to a country other than theirs. Maybe there was an assumption, Celeste, at one point that, if I can somehow get across the border, or maybe it was in that phase where it was wide open borders.
Right.
And if they do deport me, I'll just get a one-way ticket back to whatever country in South America, Central America.
The Middle East. They come from, people are crossing from everywhere.
Yeah. But now, the U.S. is working with countries on the other side of the planet. And so the issue was migrants challenging here, got into the country illegally. And so the lower court went one way, but the Supreme Court just did go along with the Trump administration. The three liberal judges dissented, saying it would put everybody in that boat at the risk of death or torture.
Okay.
But the rest of the judges did not agree with that.
I think it's a, heavy news day.
Yeah.
It might be a day to slip in some of those news headlines. It might not be normally as popular.
Right. You think old Justice John Roberts looks at it and says,
this is
this
a good
could
day.
be a day to kind of slide that.
Yeah. Is there anything else, other fellow justices we want to?
Yeah. That's just Celeste speculation. Let's get to Doug Luzader because he has the full wrap out of D.C. All right, Doug, if you are ready, here we go.
There had been some last-minute missile strikes in Israel before the ceasefire was supposed to go into effect. But now new missiles reported to be aimed at northern Israel in what could be a clear violation.
This is the kind of messy period that generally happens around a ceasefire, where a side that is typically on the losing side is going to try to get a little bit more.
Is it just a last gasp? It came despite President Trump's early morning directive on Truth Social. The ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it. That followed the surprise announcement late yesterday that the Trump administration had brokered a deal.
That's always been his goal. I actually think when we look back, we will say the 12-day war was an important reset moment for the entire region.
The deal had come together so quickly that some weren't sure to believe it. But both Israel and Iran would later confirm that there was, in fact, an agreement. That followed the intense U.S. bomb attacks on an Iranian nuclear facility. And while there's little doubt that it was a massive setback to Iran's nuclear ambitions, there are concerns that Iran's stash of enriched uranium remains unaccounted for.
They have the technical know-how. They can assemble a cascade of centrifuges in a basement somewhere. They have the uranium. So if they're still hell-bent on acquiring a weapon, that's something that we obviously have to impede.
Okay, and as far as the ceasefire deal is concerned, the president just posted on Truth Social a few minutes ago that he has, in essence, salvaged this deal. He says that Israel has decided not to launch a counter-strike this morning, so we'll see whether that holds. He is on his way, the president is, to the Netherlands for a big NATO summit. Ron.
It was this post yesterday Doug, when everybody was kind of standing by wondering what the Iranians would do, what the president said on Truth Social. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured. Do we hear anything from the intelligence community? Do they think that was sort of it in terms of a direct Iranian response to the U.S.?
It would seem to be, and it seems as though it was highly choreographed as kind of a face-saving measure for the Iranian regime to show that they did, in fact, respond to the U.S. airstrikes over the weekend. It's not to discount the kind of danger that U.S. service members are in that region, but this was handled in such a way, apparently, to try to minimize any risk for any potential U.S. casualties. And, of course, as far as we know, there were no U.S. casualties.
Yeah. Okay. Doug, thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's a familiar face indeed.
Isn't it
Syleste,
so great to have him here?
You and I like to think that we're a big deal.
Not me, Ron. Speak for yourself.
What is Big Dave laughing about? We are kind of a big deal. But Mike Page is like at a whole nother level.
He's
man.
another level.
He operates
Guys,
News Now.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep coming down here because you guys pump me up so much. This is nice. It's just a nice little confidence boost. You know?
Yeah. Well,
that's
Mike's
what we
on
aim
live
to
now.
do.
Yeah.
And Mike, boy, it has been a whirlwind 24 to 36 hours for President Trump. And he doesn't generally drop those four-letter words out on the South Lawn, but he's mad.
Oh, he was. I mean, I haven't seen him like this. I mean, you saw he was visibly upset coming out of that White House because you figure going to bed last night, you're thinking, okay, he's going to have this big, it was going to be a parade at NATO because, I mean, look at what he was able to accomplish with his team, talking about the ceasefire deal.
And somebody nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
I saw that.
Yes. And then when he came out and what happened overnight with the bombs, and then he drops the F-bomb.
I know,
which is, you know, we've been streaming Donald Trump rallies for 10 years now.
Yeah,
10 years.
long time.
Right.
We've heard him, you know, drop a different type of language, you know, to really emphasize sometimes, but I've never heard the F-bomb.
Well,
He was
here's
pretty
my
upset.
speculation. Of course, you're going to show, you know, a certain level as president, but I'll bet you anything. The phone call that he had just wrapped up with Bibi Netanyahu probably contained about 500 of those.
Yeah.
Right? Because it sounds like he's way more upset with the Israelis than with the Iranians.
Yeah, and that was a real difference maker, I think. I mean, look what you put on that Truth Social just before you went out there saying, you know, for the Israel to turn around, for their pilots to be turning around. I mean, he's like urging them while they're in the sky.
Well, he's putting himself on the line.
Oh, for sure.
Right? He put himself out on the line. He defended, to a certain extent, Israel.
And
you know, and next thing you know, they turn, you know, they go back on him. And it's like,
you know what I was wondering? Do you think there was too much leeway in the ceasefire? Because when you read the language, it was like, you know, we're going to wrap up in 6 hours.
Or except maybe you can go to 12.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, at least on the Israeli side, right till that last hour, you know, they were kind of pushing the limit. Now, this is interesting, Mike, because I knew you wanted to just take a look at some of the things he had to say. Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it is a major violation. Like you said, bring your pilots home.
Yes.
Can I just throw in the mom thing here?
Okay.
Okay, this is something a mom would say. Do not do that. Do not drop those bombs.
Right.
I've already gone out on a limb for you, son.
Yes.
Do not fight with your sister. And come on, I'm trying, you know, but you can't control either side.
If you were on Truth Social, you would sign it. You get back to this house now.
Right
Sincerely, Syleste B. Rodriguez, your mom.
Exactly.
And guys, you know another reason why you could tell that he's really upset? Not because it's all in caps. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
Another reason why, look at the top one. It is not, or really the second one, it is not signed with "Thank you for your attention on this matter." We have been seeing that lately. Now, when it's a good, positive moment, he's signing it with "Thank you for your attention on this matter," and that part in itself is going viral. People in group messages now.
Yeah.
are saying, they'll say, hey, what do you want to eat on Saturday? And they'll say something, and then they'll say, thank you for your attention on this matter.
So that's like trending.
It's almost,
thank you for your attention on this matter, Ron.
Hey, I see half a dozen emails in the building every day that wrap up with that.
Thank you for your...
Right? Yes. It doesn't involve bombs or Iran or any of that. But, Mike, did you happen to see this story? I quote Daily Mail here. Celeste, you're going to love this too. The L.A. County Sheriff's Department
I know.
expressed condolences for the tragic U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear sites in a post over the weekend that has now been removed.
Oh, brother.
Los Angeles County Sheriff. As far as I know, they're responsible for solving crimes in Los Angeles County.
And that's it.
And not even Orange County.
No.
Not across the world. While this tragic event happened overseas, the L.A. County Sheriff's Department is closely monitoring the situation alongside our local, state, and federal partners. What does that mean? You're watching it on Fox News and you're calling them up and saying, hey,
I think they're watching here on YouTube.
For goodness sakes.
But look at how long have we had social media now where it's like 15, 18 years?
Yep.
Don't people know by now, just don't go political?
Right.
You're a law enforcement agency.
Sure.
What are we doing?
So we have a question in the chat box from Charles David.
Oh,
he
Celeste,
says,
just one quick thing.
Yes, go for it.
I just want to wrap this part up,
Go.
and then we're going to move on to your topic. So it just said here, Stop Anti-Semitism wrote in response, we sincerely hope your account was hacked.
Right. I mean,
there were no victims in last night's successful targeting of Iran's nuclear sites.
Oh.
Anyway, they took it down. But like you said, Mike, once it's up, people are going to do screen grabs.
Oh, all it
All
needs
the
is
time.
1 second. All it needs is 1 second. Someone's going to grab it.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Absolutely.
Celeste, what were you going to say
well,
now?
Well, Charles David just said, so now what happens next? Now what happens?
Okay.
Trump is fired up. What happens with Israel?
Yes.
He says pilots go back home.
They're going to stand down. I think Trump laid the law down to Netanyahu, and I think that the pilots are returning, and I think he's going to put such immense pressure on. Don't you, Mike?
I mean, you got to wonder, too. Like, I think there's a lot in the Middle East, in the surrounding areas, too.
Yeah.
Qatar, of course,
Sure.
Bahrain. They got to be holding their breath right now, thinking, is this going to hold, though? Because it's just going to take another missile by Iran, and this whole thing's going to start up again.
Well, one more chance for you to vote in our poll question. There's that QR code. And don't forget, if you like to vote on YouTube, here is your YouTube. Look at that. The next couple of votes are going to push it over 1,000 already.
Nice.
What do you think happens next? All right. Mikey, always great.
Good
Great
to see
to
you,
have you
Mike.
guys. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Celeste, you've been chit-chatting with folks this whole 45 minutes.
I have, and many of you, come on over, Isabella, have a seat, have chimed in with a lot of great conversation, where you're from, voting also, and just, kind of sharing your thoughts and opinions on the topics that we're covering this morning as well. I wanted to bring, we chatted early on this hour about Ron. You visited North Dakota last year. You're going to head to Minnesota next. Right. And so Daryl is one of our new viewers and chatters on Fox 10 Talks. And he shared an idea. He's in Minnesota.
Oh.
And he had an idea for you.
That's the state I'm going to go to this year.
Yes.
And explore for a whole week.
So he has an idea for you. Okay. I said, do you have any recommendations for Ron? And he said there was a great restaurant. Let me pull up his. It's called Matt's Bar in Minneapolis. Yeah. And he said it's got a really good Juicy Lucy.
Okay.
I then said, what is a Juicy Lucy?
Okay.
I asked him.
Are we keeping this PG, Celeste? What's happening
Ron,
here?
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Well, I'm just asking. What do you got?
Usually that's me, not you. Okay, I was thinking the same thing. We're thinking along the same lines, but it actually is a burger. So I said, what is a Juicy Lucy? And I was afraid to ask in the chat, but hey, it's YouTube, so anything goes.
That's right.
So he says.
We're also on TV now, but go right ahead, Celeste. Well, I mean, who knows wherever this is headed?
2 burgers together and hot melting cheese. Yeah. But don't get on your clothes, he says, or you will be wearing it all day. So they got a great burger at Matt's Bar in Minneapolis.
A good burger. That's great.
Yes.
Will you ask Matt if he's ever been to the original?
Derek.
Oh, Derek.
Yeah.
Will you ask? Matt has the bar. Derek is the friend.
Yes.
Okay. Will you ask him if he's ever been to the original Hell's Kitchen in downtown Minneapolis? I took my dad there once.
Oh, how cool.
Based on the recommendation of a longtime friend of the station, Wayne Stutzer, who grew up there.
I love Wayne.
And his dad was a shoe salesman. It's just a great family story. Anyway, the original, before the TV show, Hell's Kitchen, is downstairs. You got to go down into this. It's like a little brick kind of hangout.
Yeah.
The best lemon ricotta pancakes I ever had in my life.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, I could, by the way, we welcome Isabella to
Isabella.
the program today. Hello. Isabella,
Hi.
We are so glad to have you here. We have this topic of summertime road travel. And so I have no idea what Celeste came up with. We're going to talk about our favorite places that we've been that are maybe a little off the beaten track.
Yes.
No Cali and no Washington, because we all either
That's
are
what
from
we would've
there
said.
or exactly. A lot of great places. So here's why. There's a story out that it's from Wallet Hub, and these are the top 5. This is pure coincidence, by the way, but these are the top 5 summer travel states.
Okay.
Number 1 is Minnesota. What do you know? Then you have New York, Ohio, Utah, and Louisiana. I'm surprised there's only one Western state, and it's not California.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's Utah, but they have obviously all those great national parks like Bryce and Zion and all the rest. But the bottom 5 are Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Montana. Well, Montana is about as beautiful a place as you could ever expect to see. So I guess what they use, though, are factors like fun activities for the kids.
Okay. Yes.
So, some of these Delawares or Rhode Islands might not be as fun as the others, as well as things like cost, overall safety, etc. But then it just got us talking about where have we been on summer vacations that we could tell you guys about. So, Isabella, you've been thinking about it. What do you got?
Yes. Well, not California and Washington. Okay. I've been to Georgia over the summer.
Oh, nice.
And, I was a little hesitant because I assumed it'd be super humid. But I went to Atlanta. My auntie lives there, my Auntie Eileen. And it was so much fun. It was very walkable. She has this thing called the Built Line by her house. And you just walk it, lots of green trees. And honestly, the food is so good. Right. It was an eating vacation. All we did was eat. That's
Oh my gosh,
my
she's so
auntie.
beautiful. Look at her.
Is that your auntie?
Yes.
Right there?
She looks like your friend. She looks so beautiful and young.
Celeste has an aunt in El Paso. Or she used to.
I used to.
Yeah.
Now she's
back
now
here,
she's
right? In
no,
Phoenix?
she's actually at FBI headquarters. She's in DC now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any relatives in the FBI?
No, not that I know of.
So here's the beauty of having a family member in the FBI. Real quick, though.
Oh, yeah, I
bet. Not only do you have protection at Thanksgiving, somebody who carries a gun at all times, but they have to do a deep dive into your family history.
Okay. Oh,
so they are like, we know that our family's fairly clean.
Okay,
so,
good.
You know,
you all pass background checks whether you wanted to or not?
Yeah, they don't give you a choice. It's so crazy.
Okay, Celeste, what did you come up with?
So mine actually wasn't necessarily in the summer, but this was a great vacation. And it was a trip that I took with my daughter to go look in North Carolina. We went to Wilmington.
Oh.
We went in this is in December, actually.
Celeste, you better have that framed on your wall.
That's so beautiful.
You and Kiana.
Yeah.
Wow, what a picture.
So Wilmington I had no idea this was it, but it's like they called it Wilming Wood. It's like the Hollywood of the Southeast.
Oh.
They shoot like all kinds of different shows. This summer I Turned Pretty.
Oh.
They shot that movie there.
Mhm.
Dawson's Creek. A lot of those other shows, that are shot in, they shoot them there. And the restaurants were amazing. And the beaches were like those big, long beaches you see with long piers. And it just was so beautiful. And that's like, and I would never have thought of going there if we weren't looking at UNCW at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we looked at, But, so it's like you never know where you're going to find that next special spot.
Yeah. Okay, so I am going to, let me just see here. I know Glenn's kind of running the show for me anyway, but I think it might be graphics too here. Okay, so I'm going to go with Alabama, and here's why. Can you guys see that Fox 10 news vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Alabama.
Oh, my God.
I'm at the state capitol. I wanted to go see where Martin Luther King had the march from Selma to Montgomery.
Oh, wow.
Talk about historic. That's the state capitol right there behind me. So then I go walking down to the street, and I'm like, Fox 10?
You're like, I can't escape it even on vacation.
That doesn't even look like our logo.
It doesn't even, is that a Mini Cooper? Like, what is that car?
No,
is
it's
that
a Ford.
It's a van.
Yeah.
Is it a van?
Yeah. Well, they're probably on a tighter budget than we are. We have full-size, SUVs.
I actually like the van.
Oh, good. Do you want a Mini? What do you want, Celeste? Anyway, guess what I found out? After posing for this picture, Renee's like, you cornball.
That's a great photo.
I'll take it. It's from Mobile. I believe it's Mobile, Alabama.
Wow.
They have a Fox 10 also.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if, what are their, slogans?
They're call letters.
Yeah. Just you watch the best.
If it's just you watch the best, come on. If they start up an FTT,
we've got problems.
We're going to have a little throwdown.
Yeah, it's going to be like Anchorman 3
Yes,
in the street.
Hey, look to the left, though. Here's the thing people don't appreciate about Alabama. That is outside of Huntsville. As you go north from Huntsville up toward Chattanooga, Tennessee, the river, the lakes, the mountains, it's so beautiful.
Wow, that is gorgeous.
I mean, there's a lot to love about Alabama. Sure, the weather gets a little bit warm, in the summer months, but
we're used to it.
Loved it. Yeah, for sure. All right, so there are your ideas.
I just noticed the three of us had ideas in the South or the Southeast part of the country.
Yeah.
And I think for like a lot of people out west, we don't always think about going that far.
Right.
But it might be worth it to explore a new area.
I will say Southern hospitality and Southern cooking are both the real deal.
So great.
Yeah.
The food is so good.
Now, if you guys in the chat, if you have a place that you've been that you want to pass along to everybody else, we're all ears.
By the way, Angela Marie just chimed in. She said, first timer here from Scottsdale, Arizona.
Nice.
Angela Marie.
Good morning.
Welcome. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left, then Anita will pop in. But the other topic, besides like a place you've been you want to share with the crowd today, is yesterday was National Detroit Style Pizza Day.
Oh.
And so the main reason I was off yesterday, I like to have my own personal celebration with
Detroit.
a lot of Detroit-style pizza.
Good.
How's your stomach today, Ron?
Here's my question for you. Where have you been lately where you had a really good slice of pizza?
Oh, that's
Think
a
about
good
that one.
question.
Anything pop into your head, Isabella? Or maybe the best slice of pizza you ever had in your life, whatever you.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind was a slice of pizza in New York. I was getting on the subway. I was stuffing my face with a pizza, and I just felt like I was in a New York movie. So it was good.
Oh,
I don't remember what it was called.
I'm trying to
Celeste,
think.
you haven't had a good slice of pizza lately?
I've had some great pizza. I'm trying to think of like the best though. Like
Well-
I'm thinking like Pino's.
Okay.
They're like a little divey place. Yeah, you've been
Where
there,
are
Ron.
they?
Yeah, they're
Where are
on
they,
Thomas and like Fifth Avenue, right across from or Fifth Street,
up
across
there
from
by the hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
He's from Italy. He makes the
Wow.
best cheese pizza
Yeah.
I've ever had in my life.
People say
So good.
to me, well, why do you like the Detroit style pizza?
Yeah.
So you start with the Wisconsin cheese, you put it in these metal pans, you let the cheese literally melt over the top and down the sides so that the sides become crusty.
There's
and the
a-
rest of the pizza is just like so
Can
like,
you
perfect.
share a little of the history though? The idea of those deep pans goes back to the like General Motor days.
1940s. Yes. Yeah. A matter of fact, it was a guy who.
Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you,
Good
Isabella.
to see you, sister.
It was a guy who worked in the factory, and those were their tool pans.
Yes.
He would bring it home. His wife would clean it out. And she said, "I'm going to put pizza in there."
I think it's brilliant. And you know, can leave it up to the female. Leave it up to the wife in the house to find a way to work around.
Yeah, she did
Cheers to the women out there paying their rent on time.
Yeah. Cooking up that Detroit style pizza.
That's an ode to Bruno Mars, by the way. His song Chunky. Ron and I, it's
Yeah.
one of our favorite songs.
Yeah, no kidding. We used to laugh about that in the studio all the time. Anita, what's going on?
Lauren Clark is coming on. She is
great.
actually heading up to do a really fascinating interview with the actual suspect who killed the pastor up in New River. So she is going to be face to face with him at a table,
wow.
Okay.
talking about how and why. And when you guys hear this interview later on tonight, we will probably have her back on tomorrow to discuss the experience because it really is a wild story.
She's done a great job on that
covering
story.
that.
So, like Justin Lum has done an amazing job on the stories he's covered. Lauren's really owned this story. It's been amazing the work she's done.
Yeah. Okay. And then
We're
what
also
else,
going to
Anita?
talk about drowning prevention. We have the coalition coming in. 4th of July is coming. A lot of people are going to have pool parties. We swim, obviously, quite often. But the big thing is you have 20, 30 people watching the kids, but really no one's watching the kids. So we're going to talk about prevention, but also some interesting statistics. We're going to talk about how many children, unfortunately, lost their lives in drowning incidents last year and how many so far this year. You're going to be very shocked. Education goes a long way.
Thank you, Anita.
That's next on
Thank you for
YouTube.
watching.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome on in. So glad that you're here joining us. So is Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren, welcome on in. We brought you in because you have a very interesting case coming up in just a few minutes. You are preparing to go interview the individual who is accused of killing the pastor in New River. So let's start at the very beginning. If you can maybe just give us a little bit of background, because you have been covering the story since the very beginning. Walk us through what happened, because this story is just beyond wild. And the more and more that we're learning, it's downright creepy. That's the best word I can use to describe the story.
Yeah, you know, when you have the sheriff stand up in a press conference and say this is the most bizarre case in all of his 40 years in law enforcement, you know that this certainly is, as you put it, Ty, a very creepy case. So for those of you who have not been following along, this all started in late April when we got the word that there was a homicide that happened in New River. And New River, you know, is a very small community, very tight-knit community up near the Cave Creek area. And so homicides, murders, they do not really happen in this area. This is where people don't lock their doors. Neighbors were telling me they often keep it completely unlocked, their doors unlocked, that type of
Everyone knows everyone.
Everyone knows everyone.
But they also
for
keep
sure.
to themselves.
Very sure. Yes, they keep it to themselves. You know, they have a lot of land. So automatically, this is already an odd case when you hear about a homicide in New River. And then you also find out that the person who has been killed was the beloved pastor of this community, New River Bible Church.
We're looking at his images right now.
And that is the pastor right there. And that's his home, actually. We were able to drone the crime scene when we arrived that day. And when we heard about this murder, MCSO was very tight-lipped, you know, very close to the chest with the details surrounding it. And we finally did get news from MCSO that this individual you're looking at right here, Sheaf, that they're looking at him as a suspect. He has not been formally charged, so that's important. They're working currently with the DA's office.
So as of right now, he has not been formally charged?
No, but they have called him, you know, a highly suspect in this case.
How is it that they're able to keep him in custody if they have not formally charged him?
So he's currently in custody in Coconino County. And the way that we were able to hear about him is he went to New River, accused of killing Pastor Bill, then booked it up to Sedona, where he had planned to kill other pastors. He was found right next to, everyone who's visited Sedona before knows of that beautiful chapel that you have there in the rocks. He was camped out right next to there. And you saw in the video that there was appeared to be some surveillance video that was given to us by someone who owned a house that he robbed. So he's currently in Coconino booked on those charges of robbery. Yes. So they're currently working right now. As you can imagine, this is a very sensitive case. Sources have told us with Fox 10 that he was found with his arms spread out and his hands pinned to the wall. This was religiously motivated. We do know that from officials as well.
So basically, what potentially, quote unquote, kind of crucified.
Yes.
Is what the pastor was.
He was wearing a crown of thorns. Is that something that we were talking about, or?
Yes, we have heard that from. So we've chosen not to report that, but yes. So clearly there was a lot of religious
symbolism
and motivation here. So you can imagine they want to make sure all their X's are crossed and their I's are dotted. They even told us the reason they had this press conference when they basically said that he was kind of the suspect they were looking at in this case is because they were feeling the pressure from the media. We were continuing to ask these questions, continuing to push. Because
and I know you've got a lot of sources that were kind of helping you along, and so we were kind of asking MCSO to try and confirm
exactly
all of these different kind of very interesting and bizarre details,
right?
And they were very tight-lipped,
right? And you know, even aside from that as well, there's this idea of knowing information, and you also have to think about the people of New River. I was talking to many people who live there and texting with many people, and they were really shaken to the core, terrified to hear what happened.
Well, they didn't know if their beloved pastor was targeted for some reason. They didn't know if they should be afraid for their lives, or if this really was a random crime, which in a sense it may have been random, because we don't know if there is any connection then between the pastor and the suspect.
Yeah, we know that there was religious motivation. I did talk to some people in New River, and I spoke to one woman. She was just so lovely. She was just telling me about the type of person Pastor Bill was. She was living in her car, and he came up to her And he made sure that she would be able to find a home, find a job. He was able to help her get her life back on track. And so her whole thing was like, gosh, I really hope his kind heart of wanting to help others wasn't an impact here in his death.
Yeah.
You know, so this was a guy who truly seemed to live out his faith of this idea of helping others.
Lauren, we have a question from Ethan D. And I know this is something I asked, but we're going to go back and revisit Ethan. Why hasn't he been formally charged?
Yeah, and so that's because I would assume they're going through all the details, right? You know, this is something you've got to get right.
Yeah.
You know, you only have one bite of the apple, so to speak, when you're talking about prosecution bringing it through. It's not like they do. I don't know.
They don't want the charges to be thrown out
And
in
something
court
happened.
if something were to go wrong.
Right.
They want 1,000% proof.
Not to mention what he's accused of doing is horrendous.
Right.
You do not want someone like this, you know.
Well, you're going up to talk to him.
Yes.
The suspect.
Yes.
What's going through your head right now? Because obviously this is kind of it's going to be a very interesting conversation that I'm sure you're going to have with him.
Yeah. And, you know, this is all about being a reporter, right? And just trying to ask the whys, the questions. And then I also think it's really important to keep this person accountable if he is admitting to doing this type of behavior. Why? And does he feel any remorse for taking a human life?
Yeah.
And, you know, if this is religiously motivated, and it appears that he, with his tattoo that he has on, that perhaps like there's this connection with the 10 Commandments could be possible. You know, the 6th commandment also says, thou shalt not kill.
Right.
How is there this seemingly kind of duality going on here? So I think pushing for this accountability is really important.
We've all been in situations where we're faced with really tough interviews, and tough in the sense that not necessarily what questions are you going to ask, but tough in the sense where we're people too, and we have the emotions, and you can separate yourself, right, and look at the facts. But sometimes it's really difficult not to let the facts affect you as a person. I mean, I've covered cases where mothers have killed their children, and it's tough to stand out there. It's tough to ask the questions, and just learn that information.
Yeah. No, it can be sometimes. And you've just got to keep focused.
Sure.
And I think maybe tonight will be a little bit more of a processing moment.
Yeah. Lauren, real quick, are you doing this in person? Is this going to be via Zoom?
This is going to be in person.
It's going to be in Zoom.
Yeah,
okay, so you're
in
heading
Coconino.
up to Coconino County. Okay. And we'll look forward to your reports, I guess, for the rest of the afternoon, because this is going to be a very interesting kind of don't miss TV interview with Lauren later today. So we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us first before you head up there.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Lauren.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll let you run out of here. I know you got you got things to do and things to prepare for.
We've got video of Valley Fever. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
There's a new test, a new rapid test that is out that detects Valley Fever, which is really interesting because that's something that I don't want to say plagues people who live in Arizona, but definitely affects us.
And it's always kind of in the back of your mind, right?
Absolutely. So Dr. John, Doctor, I don't want to say your last name incorrectly.
Galgiani.
I was so close. It was almost out of my mouth. Good morning to you. We've chatted so many times throughout the years. You are up at Tucson. You have a lab at the university there where you have been studying how to cure a valley fever. I know you treat patients in the valley. What do you think about this rapid test?
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, you're talking about the one that was developed jointly by Mayo Clinic, Scottsdale, and ASU.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not part of that collaboration, but I'm aware of what they've been doing. I think it's a very interesting play. I'm looking forward to seeing how the data comes out.
Can we talk a little bit about maybe folks that are new to Arizona, just what valley fever is and how it affects the body?
Sure. So valley fever is a fungal infection, and it occurs where the fungus grows in the soil, and spores when things get dry, they get out of the soil and into the air. And if you inhale one of these spores, you're showing nice pictures of that right now. Then you become infected, and it really probably only takes 1 or 2 spores. So it's not like you have to have a cloud of these things. And that leads for some people, no symptoms at all. They become infected. They become immune for the rest of their life after that. But for about a third or a half of people who inhale these spores, they get sick. And the illness most commonly is a respiratory infection with cough, chest pain, weight loss, fever, night sweats. But other symptoms are very common as well, rashes and aches and pains. One of the synonyms for valley fever is desert rheumatism because the joint pains and the myalgias are so common. That illness, for most people, eventually gets better, and it can take weeks to months. And my experience is that people are very surprised at how much impact it has, even though we call that the self-limited form of the disease. It's anything but 1 or 2 days. It's often many weeks before. Fatigue is one of the very common symptoms, and that may last for sort of like long COVID for long periods of time.
Doctor, a test like this, how beneficial could that be? For example, we have the COVID test, we have flu test. So if you're able to catch it early enough, will that help with treatment? Will that help with long-term effects?
So one of the big problems with valley fever is getting physicians to order the tests. It requires a specific test to make a diagnosis. And one of the impediments to getting clinicians to do the testing is all of the tests currently need to get sent to a reference lab, and the results don't come back, if you're lucky, 2 or 3 days later. And in some parts of the state, it won't come back for a week or maybe 2. And so if we had a test that could be done either at the bedside or in the clinic where you are being seen, with a result coming back within an hour, for example, that would be very exciting and would probably make physicians much more likely to do the testing.
Doctor, I know you mentioned that you're not kind of on board with, or obviously you're not kind of connected with this test, but just talking about this, I mean, technologically advanced, I mean, this would really help maybe a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I think it would be very valuable if the test was very sensitive and you could do it where the patient is being seen and got a result within an hour. I think then what happens is you wouldn't be treated empirically for all sorts of other things that the physician might worry you have, like give you antibacterial drugs, antibiotics, which will be of no benefit. So much of the benefit of early diagnosis is stopping a whole lot of healthcare, which otherwise people, with the best of intentions.
Doc, I'm going to give. Can I break in real quick? We have to. reintroducing.
Yes, I know.
One of the comments there is about dogs.
All right, hey Doc, we're back. We have a couple of questions. Thanks for being so patient. Ethan D is asking, is there something like this for dogs? My dog suffers from valley fever a lot. And then Sherry Nevada Pup says, I have a friend who lives out in the desert who got valley fever. One of her dogs also got valley fever. I frequent her property for dock diving events with my dogs. How do I protect everyone, meaning herself and the dogs, when we're out there?
Well, I'm afraid that actually just living here is the risk. And I don't really know of any way to prevent the exposure. Masks are just not feasible to wear those 24/7. So I think knowing about that's the best defense. And there is evidence that people who know about valley fever before they get sick get a diagnosis sooner because they ask their doctor, don't you think you should test me for it? But dogs, as you mentioned, have just as much of a problem. In fact, they probably have more of a problem in terms of numbers or percentage of risk of getting infected than humans. And there is a vaccine in development by a company called Anavive, which was licensed the vaccine that was discovered at the University of Arizona. And it's actually well on its way towards becoming a veterinary product, which would be used first to prevent valley fever in dogs. And there's actually work now underway to also make that same vaccine, redevelop it for a human preparation as well.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the piece we worked on many years ago together when you were still trying to develop and you were testing this vaccine. And just last year is when I think it was last year or recently you received that go saying it works, which is great news because hopefully we'll be able to help people and dogs who contract valley fever.
That's right. It looks like a very effective vaccine. And the problem is now simply taking the discovery and making it into something which becomes available to both veterinarians and eventually to physicians. That's what I want to get done.
Doctor, I have one last question before we kind of wrap things up. I know this might be a difficult question, but is there geographically here in Arizona an area where people are more susceptible to getting valley fever, or do we see cases more specifically in one area versus another?
Yeah, well, it's very endemic to the Sonoran Desert. So the parts of the state where we have Sonoran Desert, and of course Maricopa County is got the population density. So you're combining endemic problems right here with the number of people who live right here. So Maricopa County has 1/2 of all U.S. infections of valley fever.
Wow.
But the other counties that are just as intensely a problem are where I live in Pima County around Tucson, and also in between that, Pinell County. So the 150 miles between Tucson and Phoenix is really, we call it the valley fever corridor.
Wow.
And doctor, it's not just those big walls of dust that create these spores. You can be out there sweeping your garage, or my husband's constantly using the blower. I bought him a new blower for his birthday, and he's always out there blowing the driveway. And like, be careful because those spores can be in that dust as well.
That's right. In fact, they're really small. So small breezes, 1 or 2 or 3 mile an hour breezes are probably enough to get them knocked into the air.
All right.
Thanks, doctor.
Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. You're a wealth of knowledge, so we're going to keep you on speed dial.
Happy to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Be safe. So 4th of July is upon us. Big celebrations, big parties. A lot of people will be having big crowds in the backyard swimming.
And it's also hot. This is
It's
the time
hot,
where you want to go
right.
in the backyard,
Absolutely.
cool off. But obviously, this is the time where you need to be very vigilant when it comes to drowning. And so we have an expert in the field with us here this morning. This is Jay Arthur. He is the Vice President of Drowning Prevention Coalition of Arizona. Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
I'm glad to be here. Get the word out.
And you're also a former firefighter, we should mention, right?
Yeah, I spent 36 years with the Phoenix Fire Department.
How many of these calls did you go out on, these drowning calls? We hear them, we cover them. That siren goes off.
I've been on many over my career, and I was on a task force back when drowning was an epidemic in 1989, so I actually got to see hundreds of them, literally, in the process of that. And that's why I'm still involved in this, even after my retirement and days now, because I think it's so important.
Can you give us some facts and figures, kind of what's been happening so far this summer? Because you mentioned so far we're I guess I wouldn't want to say the word we're doing okay, because that seems heartless, but
the numbers this year are better than they were last year.
That's a much better way of putting it. Yes.
Exactly. Last year at this time, we had 10 children under the age of 5 drown and die. We had a total of 19, which was a record number last year. Of those 19, 17 of those were in non-swimming time, which was really strange, because you think you got to watch your kids around water, but they made access from their from inside their home into a pool or a spa, and they had direct access to it. So what we did at the end of the summer last year and through this year is to emphasize you need to have secondary locks on your doors and windows leading out to the pool to alert you that child is making their way to the backyard pool in a non-swimming time. And I think with that effort, we've really reduced the number of drowning. In fact, we've only had one child under the age of 5 die in our community so far, which is phenomenal. And like you said, you don't want to sit there and drop your guards down, but it makes a huge difference.
And you said something that I thought was really interesting. We were just kind of talking to a little bit, where we always say, you know, you got to always keep your eyes on your kids, but you said that's not always feasible. Life is happening around you.
Exactly. You know, we try to tell you watch your kids 24/7, but in reality, even watching one child that much, but when you have multiple kids, it's very tough to do. And that's a reason those secondary alarms and locks on your doors, they're very inexpensive. We try to tell people to put fences around their pools, which is the most important thing. We encourage that, but people can't go out and afford that in reality.
Yeah.
But a simple $10 lock, a sounding alarm on a door saying, hey, my child's getting to the pool, I'm tending to another child, it gets my attention, so I'm alerted that they're going to the backyard pool.
We used to have was it the ABCs of drowning? I know that we've added a couple things. So it's active supervision, installing the barriers, using life jackets, learn how to swim. Let me ask you about the supervision, because you have 20, 30 adults at a party. You've got, I don't know how many kids, and everyone's having a good time. And everyone thinks that everyone else is watching, and no one's watching.
Exactly. We call it designated watchers. And we've really come a long ways from when we came out years ago saying, yeah, you got to have someone watch your kids around water, but you got to be specific and determined to be the designated watch. That means your responsibility is signed on you. You actually watch the kids, eye-to-eye contact. We tell them to be sober, make sure they're vigilant. We tell them even to scan the pool now, to not just sit in one location, get up, walk around, especially when you have multiple kids in a pool.
Well, we've covered cases where the kids, there's so many kids that unfortunately,
you don't know,
well, there's the child will be on the bottom of the pool because there's so much activity in the water that nobody realizes that child is at the bottom.
And we've had calls where they're actually walking on the kids and they don't know any different. They find that it's too late when they do find them.
So basically it's me saying, Ty, from 11 to 11:30, because it can be cumbersome and you get tired. You're going to be on pool watch, and then you're going to take 11:30 to noon. I'll take 12 to 12:30, and so on. We take shifts.
Exactly. Okay. You can have multiple. We encourage you to have multiple. The more people you have, the more children you have, the more people you need watching. And again, no one wants to sit there and do that the whole time. You give them breaks and things, but we'll make sure you're not on the phone, that you're not distracted, you're not barbecuing, have one eye on the barbecue, one eye on your child in the pool. You want to have someone responsible for doing that. And again, rotating them and having their eye contact is very important when they're actually in the pool and having activity there.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting, because I was on your website yesterday doing a little research, and they were saying that, you think that if someone's drowning, you would hear it, the slapping of the water or a scream, but that's not the case, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Drowning is silent, and what people don't realize that what we see on TV shows, the splashing and making noise,
thrashing,
and you don't do that because when someone's actually drowning, it's silent. They're trying to gasp for air. They're not able to vocalize and yell for help like they do on TV. And once they go underwater, they can't scream for help. So it is very silent. It's very quick. And once they're in that position, you're not able to be alerted for any reason for that. So that is very important for people to realize.
Jay, the other thing I wanted to ask you too is I saw something about parents putting their kids in bathing suits that are very colorful, not blue, something that'll kind of I guess, stand out if, heaven forbid, something were to happen? You would
It's a
spot
good
them.
idea. So you can spot that red suit
Or
in
yellow,
the water.
or they said something,
yellow, yeah,
anything that's not that blue-green.
Sure,
Which
that's a really great idea.
That's an excellent point there. And in fact, that's something we've seen over the last several years doing that because, again, bluish and the color of the water like that, anything bright that stands out. Anything that can help us visually is real important doing that. So that's something we've really been encouraging.
What about resources for parents and adults, grandparents, whoever has that pool? Fences are not cheap. Locks are not cheap. I know that, for some people, they're able to pick those resources up. What if you can't? Are there different agencies and nonprofits that would help you reach those goals of pool safety? And then, what do you recommend with that?
There are a lot of people out there trying to fund different things, especially pool fencing and things like that. Obviously, it's a very expensive venture to go out and do that. But we have a lot of our website itself has a lot of resources they can go and look at, and we can point them in the right direction. And like I mentioned earlier, those locks to put on the door are very expensive. You're talking about $10.
Okay.
Or less, and you throw one of those locks on there like that, you can really prevent a tragedy from happening just by investing $10. And I always tell people, how much is your child worth?
Yeah. Sherry Nevada Pup says, my daughter learned to swim as a baby. It is important to teach them what to do if they fall in. Let's talk about those swim lessons and how early do we start? How early should we start?
Swimming lesson is highly encouraged. They can start as early as 6 months. Years ago, when I was working on the task force and things with the fire department, we were asked to go out and see a child 6 months old get into a pool, and our eyes got real big saying, you're going to demonstrate how a child this young can survive. And we were astonished that they were able to do that. It's not swimming; it's a survivability.
They kind of float onto the back.
Right? They get taught.
Wild video to see.
Until I saw it live with my own eyes, I couldn't believe it. They went up there and they had their mouth and nose above the water, and it's a survival technique, and it works. So we encourage swimming lessons. Many aquatics facilities, YMCA and things like that, encourage swimming lessons, and they're very inexpensive.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. We've got about 30 seconds left. I just want to say thank you for, you mentioned that you were a retired firefighter and now you're continuing the work. So thank you for doing what you're doing and helping our community.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always good to get the word out, and we can't let our guards down. We have to keep it up, even though we've only had one child fatality there.
One's too many, though.
Yeah,
exactly.
Your website really quickly before we say goodbye.
Our website is preventdrownings.org, and that'll get you right to the site and get you all the information you need.
Thank
Jay,
you.
thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having me.